All right. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today? Yeah? It's early, huh? I know. So I'm Taylor Monahan. I'm the founder and CEO of MyCrypto. Previously, I was with my Ether wallet. And I'm going to talk today about why the future of Ethereum doesn't have wallets. So if you know me, you know that I've been basically building and scaling an Ethereum wallet for about 2.5 years now. So this talk may seem, a little bit different. But based on my experience over the past 2.5 years, I've come to realize that your average user, your average person who wants to interact with the blockchain, they really shouldn't need a wallet in the future, especially where we're going, okay? Because the decentralized, global, autonomous future that we're envisioning for Ethereum, that's going to be DAPPS. It's going to live on a whole different level than this wallet interface. So first, we're going to start by talking about what is a wallet. And I would say wallet is one of the most confusing words. In this ecosystem, when people kind of enter this space, a lot of times they start on Coinbase, maybe they start on an exchange, and they come with all these preconceived notions about what a wallet is and what it isn't. And then when they came to my Ether wallet, and now when they come to MyCrypto, we were like trying to figure out how to explain to them that, hey, we don't hold your funds. We don't hold your keys. It's on you. It's your responsibility. And the word wallet just really isn't that clear in terms of, it just doesn't make it clear to them, period, at all. So in the new book, Mastering Ethereum by Andres Antonopoulos and Gavin Wood, they do a really good job at talking about what a wallet is. So they say, at a high level, a wallet is an application that serves as a primary user interface. The wallet controls access to the user's money. It manages their keys, addresses, their balances, creating and sending transactions. And then they go on to talk about how confusing this concept is to your average user. And they say a common misconception about Ethereum is that Ethereum wallets contain Ether or tokens. In fact, those Ether and tokens are stored on the blockchain. They're not stored in your wallet at all. So in a sense, an Ethereum wallet is more like a keychain than anything else. And this is how we describe it as well, is we see it as sort of this interface, this level, this gateway, this portal, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to access the blockchain, but we don't actually store your funds at any point. Unfortunately, users really don't get that. They just flat out don't get it. And if we're really going to build this future, and we're going to build this future, all the ideas that you've heard shared around this conference and over the past couple days, you can't have such inherent confusion so early. You have to make it really, really easy for them. So why are wallets so integral today? Because so much of this ecosystem right now it just revolves around speculation. Okay, so with Ethereum, we have people speculating about the price of Ether. And then we have ICOs, which is basically speculating on tokens, future tokens, and their utility or their value in the future. So it's all about money. But if we look towards the future, and we look at what people are building right now, and we look at what we want the future to be, what kind of future do we want to build and be part of, I asked myself, what role does the wallet play in that? And this is one of the very first infographics that I ever saw about Ethereum. It was back in maybe 2014 or 2015. And they spoke to the differences between traditional WhatsApp and a decentralized WhatsApp. And it struck a chord with me. It really, really hit me because I was like, this makes sense. But if you think about this idea, this decentralized WhatsApp, at no point do you have a wallet interface in that at all. So I think a really good exercise is for us to sort of look at what role does the wallet play in a traditional app? Because if we're building the future to replace the WhatsApps and replace the Ubers and replace the Airbnbs, the reality is we have to be at least that easy. We have to make it easier. We have to make the average user who's using Airbnb right now want to use the decentralized version of that. And frankly, it's not going to happen if we have everything separated, if you have to go to your Airbnb, your decentralized Airbnb, and then you have to go to your wallet interface, and you have these tokens, and you have this Ether, it's just not going to happen. So one thing that, when I look at Uber, when I look at Airbnb, the one thing you'll always notice is that the payment part of it is so hidden. It is such a small part. They tuck the settings under settings, so you have to go through deep level into settings. There's one page to edit your credit card information. That's it. And then when you go and you want to book an Airbnb or you want to book an Uber, the actual okay, here's my money part of it is one step out of a lot of steps. Right? And that's what makes it so easy, and this is why people use Uber over traditional taxis. So if we want people to use decentralized Uber over this Uber, we have to make it even easier for them. So if we imagine sort of the ecosystem right now, and we imagine that just magically tomorrow a decentralized Airbnb popped up, you would really, really realize that this would be a terrible experience, and we would not win anything. So let's imagine that there's this magical Airbnb, decentralized Airbnb tomorrow. I would basically go to this DApp. I'd be looking around. Maybe I want a place for this conference, for example. I would maybe look at some reviews. I'd look at the photos. I'd decide to book the place. And in the traditional Airbnb app, you literally just click a button. You click that book button, and it's done. But in the world that we're living in right now, the DApp would present you instructions on how to maybe it's get the tokens, maybe it's get some Ether, maybe it's to go open your wallet interface and send X tokens with this data parameter. Maybe it's installing MetaMask and making sure that you do this. And then once you send the transaction, you're going to need to check it. And the real problem is that if at any point in this process, so if you can't figure out how to get Ether, if you can't figure out how to get tokens, if you get tokens but you forget to leave Ether in your wallet, if you don't know what a freaking wallet is, you're screwed. You don't have an Airbnb. And there's an additional problem that you have this real possibility of losing your funds. And that's what we see all the time. And that's what I see the problem as. So when I'm looking towards the future and I'm looking at what MyCrypto is building and where we want to take the future and how we want to help usher in this decentralized future, I keep coming back to this quote that's basically, good design is invisible, right? We have to remove all the complicated stuff, all the stuff that the user doesn't care about. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to pay someone for a place, and I don't want to pay someone for a ride. I want to get from point A to point B, or I want to be able to come to Paris with an Airbnb and have a place to stay, period. The payment doesn't come into my head, and so having the payment layer as at the forefront right now in this ecosystem, that's a problem. So there are people working on the solution that aren't us. We have this blockchain interface where you can do more than just wallet features. So we have ENS stuff, we have contract stuff. MetaMask is a browser extension, and they basically are an access layer, just a browser extension access layer that allows you to manage your keys, and then you can interact with these dApps. And then you have Mist and Brave, which are sort of building the browser itself, and they're going to have some key management stuff inside of that. But the conversations that I'm looking at that are happening online, that are happening here, a lot of them are so much bigger and broader. So I was on Twitter the other day, and they were talking about how does someone make a transaction in a VR world? How do you not take the user out of this immersive reality, and so that they can make an Ethereum transaction? And that's a really good example of kind of how absurd the current ecosystem is if we're thinking about building the future of dApps. So if we ask ourselves, what does this look like? And if you're at this talk right now looking for answers, I'm sorry to say that I really don't have too many for you, because I don't know. It's quite a complex problem. I do know that if it's successful, it really won't look like much. Okay, it's going to be really invisible. And I think it's going to be it has to be universal, right? Because while we have the browser extensions and while we have the browsers themselves, the future probably doesn't exist on your computer or in your browser necessarily. We have our cars, we have our VR headsets, we have our doorbells, we have our phones, we have all of these things. And at some point in the future, these things are probably going to want to interact with the Ethereum blockchain. So to back up a little bit, will the future of Ethereum really be walletless? And I'm going to say probably not. Like, there's probably going to be situations, just like there are today, where you just want to interact with your wallet. That means you want to see your balance, you want to make just a payment, maybe you want to send to an exchange, whatever. But it's going to be more similar to the experience today. So if you pull out your phone right now and you look at your apps on your screen, you're going to see your mobile banking app is one of maybe 100 apps. Okay? It's not the one that you visit every day. It's not the one that you probably visit every week. It's the one that you visit for very specific use cases. And so moving forward, that wallet, that sort of mobile banking experience, that's going to be just one little slice of this big, broad ecosystem. So how are we sort of going to get from where we are today as this wallet interface to this like totally awesome decentralized future? And because I'm not the type of person to I don't know, like go sit in a room alone and try to figure out how this is going to be and, you know, come back in a few years with your answers. We're going to take a bit of a more balanced approach. So we're going to start with where we're at. We're going to make it better. And we're going to basically start abstracting away as much as we can and making every little piece more and more and more invisible and make it easier and easier and easier for the user. And eventually, I hope, you know, we'll find a really slick solution that works in a more broad fashion. So what we're working on right now, we just launched beta.mycrypto.com. This is an entirely brand new code base. It's written in React, it's written in TypeScript. We have a team of developers that have been writing this for about 8 months now. And they've all worked together for 8 months to make decisions, make sure it's a really solid foundation, make sure it's really maintainable. We've got documentation, and we have like tasks, we have like all those really great things that we probably should have had from the beginning. So we're doing it right this time. It's gonna be fun. One of my favorite features, like this is such a simple little thing, but we've moved the gas slider to be more contextual, so it's in line now with your transaction. And it's just a slider, and it'll automatically get the gas price from an oracle that we have. So you don't actually need to like go and know what the network conditions are, know whether you need to set like a really high gas or a low gas. And then, hey, we show the USD value of that ether so you don't send unexpectedly a transaction for like $100, which happens quite a bit right now. We've also, I think it's EIP 681 or 186, I don't know, it's one of those. But it's basically QR codes for requesting payments, which again is like one of those really simple things that we just haven't had in a really long time. So we want to thank Daniel and Ligi for really making this, like pushing this EIP through. And everyone else that commented on this EIP, like, thank you so much, because we can now have QR codes where you can scan this and it has all of your information. So no more copying and pasting the addresses and the values and all of that fancy stuff. And this just reduces that, you know, in my experience, people, if you give them the opportunity to make a mistake, they will make a mistake. And so this is like removing one more little thing that they can't screw up. We also just integrated with Shapeshift, so you can trade all the tokens now. It's super cool. It's super clean. And we're really excited to be working with them, because we think that moving forward, having just like really easier ways, and again, removing the opportunities to make mistakes is going to be great. So instead of, okay, I want to trade my ether for tokens or tokens for ether, okay, let me go copy and paste these addresses, let me go to Shapeshift, let me go back to my wallet. We're just going to let you do it all from the interface, and it's going to be way better. We're also moving to be not just generate the key store files, which are the UTC JSON files. So we now have the mnemonic phrase generation. So this is going to be, you can basically go much more easily between MetaMask and MyCrypto if you want. And then obviously, as we were building this entire new code base, we realized, wow, there's a lot of tooling that we need. And so everything we're building is open source. And these are some of the tools that we're working on right now that make developers' lives easier. So we have Shepherd, which is a client-side node balancer. So basically, if like one of our nodes is offline or being really, really slow, it'll just automatically client-side just switch to a different node. So for example, on MyCrypto, you can use our infrastructure, Infura's infrastructure, Etherscan's infrastructure, or Giveth's infrastructure. So it'll just automatically like go through those if something isn't responding, if a request isn't responding, whatever. Then we have awesome TypeScript libraries that make things more type safe and make interacting with contracts a lot easier. And then we have Drawbridge, which is my personal favorite. And you know, we use this word trustless a lot in this ecosystem. And the reality is that up until very recently, if you were using MyEther or MyCrypto, you were trusting that us, the developers, were pushing good code, and that not one of our computers was compromised, our build process wasn't compromised, et cetera. And what Drawbridge does is it basically, it's multi-factor, it's multi-level, and so it requires multiple people to actually sign off, to check. There's automated tests, there's manual tests, to basically ensure that what's getting distributed to the website and to our future apps are all, the builds of the apps are going to be deterministic, and the website, you know, everything's just checked. And that basically just ensures that if my computer's personally compromised, you guys don't get served bad code. And that's massively important. We're also working with Swim City to complete the gas station. And basically, this is going to be, it's sort of like this API smart contract mashup, and it's super, super cool. Basically, what happens is that a lot of people just want to send tokens. So whether they've just invested in an ICO or they invested in an ICO last year and now they want to go use those tokens and experiment with this DApp, right now you have to have ETH in your account to cover the cost of gas. And that's a really confusing concept for your average user. So what Gas Station does is it essentially allows users to pay for gas in tokens. And this is really, really, really important because instead of you know, right now the error message basically says like, hey, you don't have any ETH, like go get some ETH for gas. And you have to teach these users how that works and why it works that way. It's just going to display, like if you have 0 ETH in your account, it's going to display the gas price in the tokens that you're sending. So that's really, really, really cool. We're also working with Chronologic and Piper Miriam to implement the Ethereum alarm clock. And so this will be scheduling transactions. So basically, you know, let's say you want to send a transaction at a later point, you can do that. A really good example of where signing transactions for later is really kind of a necessary thing is with the ENS. And so when you have these time-sensitive transactions where you have to complete this step, complete that step, wait a day, that kind of stuff, this sort of tool is going to be really, really helpful. And again, we're going to focus on doing it right and doing it decentralized. And so that's really great stuff going on there too. And as much as we talk about all, you know, the fancy tools, the fancy future, the build tools, the dev tools, everything that we're doing, at the end of the day, I do like to remind everyone that the decentralized future is really about people, right? It's about you, it's about me, it's about all of us together, and it's about all of us working together to build this really global future world that's going to replace all these centralized forces. And so my question to you and my call to action to you all today is, what are you doing to help usher in this decentralized future? And what unique skills do you have that are going to make this ecosystem better and more usable and make this reality more real? And I have a lot of people talk to me, and I have a lot of people come up to me, and they say so often, they go, I love what you're doing, but like, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not a blockchain expert. I don't know this space. And it's like they're on the outside looking in. And I just want to say, none of us started as experts. I still don't consider myself an expert. I'm surrounded by really, really, really smart people all the time that blow my mind. And then I say to them, oh, like, you're an expert. And they say, no, I'm not. Okay, none of us went to school for this. None of us have been in this ecosystem for like 30 years. Like, this is an entirely new thing. So my call to action to you is to shift your thinking into what can I do? Don't tell me what you can't do. Don't tell yourself what you can't do. Don't tell the people around you what you can't do. Okay? Tell me what you can do. What unique skills do you have? What jobs do you have? What people have you communicated with? How were you, where were you raised? How were you brought up? All of these things, okay? And then how are these things going to help build this decentralized future? Because this future is global, and we need people from all backgrounds, all types of people. We need the engineers, we need the UX people, we need the thinkers, we need the doers, we need everything in between. If you want to help us on our decentralized journey, Jobs at MyCrypto is the place to go, or you can find me or my team. They're all right here, like this whole middle row right here. Yeah, that's everyone. And I just want to say thank you so much. This conference has been amazing, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with everyone here today. And yeah, find us. Thank you so much.
Point that people have anxiety when they deal with money in whatever customer journey that they're going through. And I think given that there's a lot of speculation and fluctuation in price of cryptos, that anxiety actually gets amplified. So I'm wondering if improving the bridge between fiat and crypto will improve basically the customer journey, at least during this transition period, or we should really stay focused on thinking about everything in a tokenized world and in a cryptocurrency world?
That's an excellent question. I think that there's a lot of moving pieces, right? And so I think that the bridge, the on-ramp from fiat into crypto is massively important. But I also think that there's a lot of other moving pieces that also need to be solidified. So when we look at stable coins like Maker's DAI, like that's a really important part in helping sort of curb that speculation and the fluctuation and the anxiety about future prices. I also think that at this point in time, as much as we want to like literally decentralize every single thing, and we're seeing people not just sort of like disrupt the financial system, but also every single type of governance and every single type of like HR and UX and everything. I think that, you know, for me personally, I like to come back to like the word balance. So balance between the future and this ideal world and the centralized world, and balance that with, okay, how does this work today? How do we make sure this works today? And same thing for like balancing security and balancing ease of use, balancing the reality that right now things are going to be a little bit messy, with the reality that you know, in the future they might not be. And so to answer your question, I think that there's a lot of moving pieces. We're personally going to be focused on the more decentralized holding your key version, but I think that especially for the speculators, I think that key management with people, so like funds, hedge funds, key management with places like Coinbase, I think that those are going to probably stay a reality. And I think that hopefully, I hope that things like Maker's DAI and stablecoins in general will help ease some of that anxiety.
Thanks for the great presentation. I've been thinking about this a fair bit since I read your blog post, and I was wondering if you felt that the reason that we can shrink the payment down in apps like Uber and Airbnb is because there's this concept of handing over a set of numbers and then they can draw any amount of money out of my account, which is obviously not something that we have in crypto yet. And so I'm wondering if there's a kind of like holding account where you say, you know, I'm willing for Uber and Airbnb to kind of draw out of these, or the decentralized versions, to draw out of these of this account in an unlimited way. Maybe you, I mean, right now you kind of technically have to hand them a private key, but I guess it's this concept that we have in the traditional financial system where you draw money out, and if there's a problem, you try and get it back from the system. And whereas we are like, I give permission for every payment, and that's what creates all this friction. I'd just be curious to hear thoughts on those models. Yeah, no, that's a great point. If you saw, did you see Jorge's talk yesterday? Yeah. So that was like a really interesting like thought experiment and process, because it's like, basically the concept is like, you could give someone
I mean, I was imagining, like, you could literally give someone, like, a piece of paper with this, like, transaction that's like a credit debit sort of system. And I think his point was well made when he said that maybe it wouldn't work when you have a string of 1,000 long, but if you have like 1 or 2 or the grocery store or your mom or something, it would probably work. And so to answer your question, I think that the reason it works like it does today is because of centralization, right? Is because we have the centralized banks that I am able to send money that I may or may not have for the sake of speed, and the banks will work it out if something goes wrong. So you have the fraud, you have anti-fraud, you have refunds, you have all these things. If my card gets frauded, I just get to call my bank and be like, hey, someone stole my card. They just like refund me the money, then they go deal with it. And that's really, really great. But that's sort of one of the trade-offs of cryptocurrency at this point. And so in the future, I think that, in the future, I hope that we will sort of, you know, really smart people will sort of work on, maybe it's like peer-to-peer lending, maybe it's like a little bit more of like a debit credit system. Maybe there's insurance that reduces some of the financial liabilities. I think all of these tools that we have in like the real world today, we sort of like have to still move on into the blockchain space in order for the average user to be able to like, you know, lose $100 or have that stolen and have that be refunded. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is like, I think people, you know, that have been in this space for a couple years or maybe a year, like at some point everyone loses money, like they lose a key, they get phished, like something happens. I think all of us have been there. And how do we, I think people when they lose that money, they sort of realize that the fees and the centralization, maybe it's not all bad. Right? And so that's why, again, like that word balance is so, so important because, you know, for your average user, maybe they would like to pay a fee in order to be refunded if their funds are stolen, right? Like maybe they're willing to do that. And for those that don't want to do that and don't want to partake in that, maybe that's okay. So how do we find that balance and how do we make, you know, this really is an ecosystem. You have a lot of different pillars that will have to work together to make that happen.
Hey, Taylor. So we've been working a lot on building a blockchain solution for the mass market, and what we've been leaning towards over time is that what we find is that the mass market doesn't care about blockchain and decentralization. They just care that the payments go through, right? So kind of along the lines of the same thought lines, is it worth wondering if we could have maybe a permissioned blockchain for the mass market user who don't care? Like the Airbnb example, you know, they don't see any crypto at all, but the users who do want to see that there is a decentralization blockchain happening, they can flip a switch in the app where then they see that, you know, they get a wallet and their private key, and then you know, they can trade it outside of that ecosystem.
Yeah, so when I think about UX in this space and design and usability, I do think about DAPPS, specifically DAPPS where you are choosing to take a course of action that is like Airbnb. You're choosing that you want to find a place to stay. You're not choosing that you want to pay for a hotel or something. Like, you want to find a place to stay so that you have a place to sleep. And for that, I think that the amount of real estate that's taken up by the money portion of it is going to be really, really small. However, this access layer, this protocol level, like whatever it's going to be, that sort of, maybe it's key management or it facilitates transactions or whatever, that's going to be a difficult problem, or it's going to be a difficult solution, right? Because you're going to want to address various types of users. And that's what our experience on MyCrypto has been, is like, we have people that are so new and really fundamentally don't understand and don't want to understand. And then we have the advanced users who are like, you know, we're talking air-gapped machines, ultra paranoid, ultra secure, ultra technical. They want to see all that. If they don't see something, they don't trust it. And so making product decisions and making UX choices about that is really, really, really tough, because how do you make a choice for both user A over here, who's like just so new and doesn't care about any of that and just wants it to be easy and seamless, and user B over here, who wants every single detail. And so I think that the answer is probably going to be multiple solutions for multiple demographics. Like I was saying earlier, where we're talking about, you know, maybe some users are okay paying a monthly fee in order for some type of insurance. I think the same thing here, right? I think that there's going to be different solutions, some of them for the more advanced users, some of them that want that air-gapped, sit in a field covered in tinfoil experience, and for the average user who, you know, really doesn't care about the money. And then I also think it's on, you know, DApp developers themselves and every single one of like the sort of the DApp user experience to think hard about this, because right now it's still easy for them to get sort of caught up in this idea that, you know, they're sitting in their Slack channels and their Discord channels and their Telegram channels or whatever, talking to investors, people who have invested speculatively on this token. So as they're making product decisions moving forward, how do you remember that the product or the people that you're building for are not necessarily the people that are investing right now in your token? Because if your product is going to be usable in the future, if your product is going to be, you know, enabling people to rent out their houses and rent houses, the people that are speculating on your token may or may not be the people that use that. And while the people that invested in your token want to know the price of the token relative to USD, they understand how ETH pays for gas, they understand all these things, the people that want to rent a house don't care about that. So it's going to be really important for sort of everyone to keep that in mind and provide, I think, a variety of solutions. You know, I'm a big fan of competition, and I hope that we can all make each other like better, and like, you know, rising tides lift all ships. And we see, you know, what sort of the best solution for best people are.
Hello, my name is Manuel. I work for B2Expand, and we're focusing on gaming and blockchain. And I think this is really interesting because we really we have a decentralized application and really have all the problems, like literally all the problems that you just raised. And I think one part of a now solution is that I'm in gaming, and I see all of that stuff through gaming, obviously, because this is my thing. And right now, Uber or Airbnb is not tokenized, so it's difficult for users to say, okay, I have to get a token, then get a service. But in gaming, nobody like literally asks these questions. When you pay for diamonds or for gems in Clash of Clans or in, well, everybody does it, even on mobile games that are like widely played by all kind of people, and nobody ever asks the question of, oh, I have to buy gems to then buy lives. And it's really like people are already educated towards that. So I'm thinking, why don't we gamify over apps? Because gamification, I think, is one part of the solution for now, until we really have tools and stuff that really make the whole process of blockchain visible. I think it's a part of a solution.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. And I was actually having a conversation a couple weeks ago with a guy in the gaming industry. And I was like, it makes so much sense. Like exactly what you said, right? The gems in Clash of Clans, like 3-year-olds are literally able to purchase gems, sometimes like to the detriment of the parents' credit cards, but still, like it's evidence of how easy that experience is. And I think that part of this ecosystem growing is that right now a lot of the people that are building this ecosystem right now are really, really, really technically talented, and developers and engineers. But the people that are going to be coming into the space to build the future, they have to be way more diverse. And part of that is like game developers, game designers, people who have had that experience. You know, part of that is you know, real product designers, real people who have experience in the world right now and can kind of cross this over. And you know, another good example of sort of like something like, okay, so Square Cash, I don't know if you guys know what they're doing. It's a really good example of like someone that's sort of on the outside of the ecosystem coming in and doing something that blows every cryptocurrency enthusiast's mind. Because they basically are like, hey, you can get your Bitcoin, You can't sell it, you don't actually have it, you can't buy it, you can't trade it, you can't do any of that, like, but you can just have it. And if you ever want it out, you have to go through like 20,000 steps and nobody's ever gonna do it. And every single person in this room, that's probably mind-boggling. Like, why would you ever want to do that? Like, I want to have it on my Poloniex and my Kraken and my Bittrex because, like, I want the best, like, diversification of price or whatever, right? And Square Cash is like, yeah, screw that. Nobody actually wants that. And these are really good, tangible examples of, I think, how the future is going to be built. Because when you have the outside perspectives looking in and being like, this is silly, and they do it their way, and then they have users who are like, oh, this makes sense too. That's how the future is going to come to be. Yeah. All right, if you have any more questions, find me at the back. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone again.